invited speakers, Honorable Chairman of Agribusiness Association of Indonesia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I wish to extend the warmest and sincere welcome to all honorable guests at the International Seminar on Agribusiness with theme Agribusiness and Economic Recovery. This seminar is organized by Department of Agribusiness,
Recording in
Faculty
progress.
of Economics and Management, IPB University, and Agribusiness Association of Indonesia. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Etria. It is a great pleasure to be the host for this seminar. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite you to have the national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to introduce the seminar chair, Dr. Amzul Rifin, to welcome our guests. Dr. Amzul Rifin, you have a floor.
Honorable Professor Dr. Arif Satria, Rector of IPB University, Honorable Professor Dr. Nunung Nuriartono, Dean of Faculty of Economics and Management, IPB University, Honorable Dr. Engineer Dwi Rahmina, Head of Agribusiness Department, IPB University, keynote speakers, participants, journal editors. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the International Seminar on Agribusiness with the theme of Agribusiness and Economic Recovery. This international seminar is a collaboration between the Department of Agribusiness, Faculty of Economics and Management, IPB University, and Agribusiness Association of Indonesia. This international seminar will be conducted 2 days, today, 19, and tomorrow, the 20th of October 2001, virtually, which consists of 2 plenary sessions, meeting with the editors, and 3 parallel sessions. The plenary session consists of 2 sessions. The first session will be conducted today, with the speaker of Professor Song So Lim from Korea University, Dr. Amar Abdul Aziz from University of Queensland, and Dr. Haryanto from IPB University. All of them have joined the Zoom. Welcome for the speakers. And the second session will be held tomorrow afternoon with the speaker of Professor On Omta and Dr. Emil Ruben from Wageningen University. And the 2 sessions will be chaired by Dr. Suharno from IPB University and Dr. Andriono Kilatadi also from IPB University. And also during this seminar, the international seminar, we will also conduct a special session with the meeting with the journals. We have 5 journals affiliated with the Agribusiness Association of Indonesia. These journals are Agraris from University of Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, which is an Scopus accredited journal. Also, we have the Socha from Udayana University Bali. We have the Jurnal Penelitian Pertanian Terapan from Politeknik Negeri Lampung. Both of them are Sinta 2 journals. And also we have Agrisep from University of Bengkulu and also Journal of Agribusiness Indonesia. Both of them are Sinta 3. The articles presented on this seminar will be encouraged to publish their articles in these journals. And with this session, hopefully, the writers, not only the presenters, have the opportunity to gather information from these editor journals. So this meeting with the editors will be conducted tomorrow morning. For the parallel sessions, we received 134 abstracts, and 93 abstracts were accepted to submit the full articles. And from those 93 abstracts, we received 55 articles, which will be presented in this seminar. The participants consist of academicians, students, and also researchers from various institutions. Lastly, thank you very much to the committee who have arranged this seminar, and thank you very much also for the presenters, keynote speakers, for participating in this seminar, and hopefully we will have a fruitful discussion during this seminar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amzul Rifin, for delivering a speech. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Dean of Faculty of Economics and Management, IPB University, Professor Nunung Nuryartono, to deliver a speech. Professor Nunung Nuryartono, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, the Master of Ceremony, the International Conference. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guest, Professor Arif Satria, Rector IPB University, the Chairman of EIE, Dr. Bayu Krishnamurti, the Head of Agribusiness Department, Dr. Dwi Rahmina, Vice Dean, Faculty of Economic and Management, Dr. Tanti Novianti, and Dr. Anna Varianti. Greeting everyone. It is my great honor and delight to greet all of you and to particularly extend a warmest welcome virtually to the distinguished guest speakers and all participants in the international seminar on agribusiness and economic recovery. The theme of this seminar, agribusiness and economic recovery, is very relevant with the recent condition. We believe that this seminar can be an arena for getting to know each other while sharing ideas and information in an effort to create collaboration in disruptive era, to building a bridge and use it to help people and business sustain and get across the other side. As we all know, the past year has been extremely challenging, one not only in life of our nation, but also globally. We all witness high degree of uncertainty in the global economy due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Agriculture systems are facing many disruptions and challenges from the pandemic, but also create new opportunities for investment with the rise from new emerging trends created by the current crisis. For example, local and cheaper food, because we have to have our own food produced locally due to global shocks. Healthy food cooked at home, online food supply chain that they are easier to trace. We also now witnesses that pandemic COVID-19 is step by step, slowly by slowly, can be controlled by every countries. Indonesia also be one good example country, which pandemic COVID-19 in the last weeks, the positive rate of COVID-19 below 1,000. We all need to adapt and collaborate, building a bridge to the day when the virus was contained, to use this bridge to help people and business sustain and get across the other side. Furthermore, we've seen a lot of disruptive technology within the last decade. Innovation things like virtual reality, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence have been shaken industries worldwide, including agriculture sectors. Therefore, I hope this seminar will create a unique opportunity of exchange view, experiences, and sharing good ideas, particularly in the field of management in disruptive era. There is a high appreciation to all committee, Department Agribusiness, and other partners who always raise the issues related to how we develop sustainable agribusiness, which will contribute positively to recovery of our economy. On behalf of Faculty of Economic and Management, again, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all stakeholders, especially from the organizing committee, Department of Agribusiness, Faculty of Economic and Management, IPB University, and also the Agribusiness Association of Indonesia, who work very hard to organize this program. We also would like to thank to our rector, who always give support continuously for our faculty, for our department. We would also like to express our gratitude to our distinguished guests, invited speaker for different university abroad, editor journal, and conference participant. I wish all of you a productive meeting and good outcome. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Very much, Professor Nunung Nuryartono, for delivering a welcoming speech. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now an honor to invite Rector of IPB University, Professor Arif Satria, to open the seminar. May I invite Professor Arif Satria to deliver a speech.
Honorable Dean of Faculty of Economics and Management, IB University, Ibu Dwi Rahmina as the Head of Department of Agribusiness, IB University. And then keynote speakers, Chairman of Agribusiness Association of Indonesia, Pak Bayu, and speakers from Wageningen University and Research, from Korea University, and from University of Queensland, Australia, and also presenters, participant international seminar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to, on behalf of IBB University, to open this scientific meeting, Agribusiness and Agricultural Economics, through international seminar, Agribusiness and Economic Recovery, which held virtually during 2 days from 19th until 20th of October 2021. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this conference is very, very relevant with the current situation of pandemic COVID-19, which affects various sectors, including health, economy, education, and agriculture. The pandemic caused the Indonesian economy to decline, and in 2020, Indonesia was in recession and start to grow in 2021. Based on Indonesia's experience, agricultural and agribusiness sector is one of few sectors that can still experience positive growth, showing that agribusiness sector has been savior during the economic crisis. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the agribusiness concept was introduced by Davis and Goldberg, which is common among academicians. Agribusiness theme has developed following the business and society environment, and in recent years, agribusiness is considered to be a holistic agricultural system from upstream to downstream with the economic motive, but also in achieving sustainability benefit, especially during the pandemic. Sustainable agribusiness has the objective to give benefits to all stakeholders in a
distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize that there is a trouble in internet connection. We wait for a minute to reconnect to our rector. Thank you very much.
I'd like to apologize for problem of network, and I'll continue my speech. Distinguished guests, during the pandemic COVID-19, we are dealing with other disruptive conditions, including climate change and Industrial Revolution 4.0. And it is related to the sustainable agribusiness as a mega sector. These three disruptive conditions we deal with must be solved soon. If not, in the future, we will face a huge negative impact, such as starvation and new mutated disease. Comprehensive agribusiness development must answer and adapt to the disruptive that we face. In IBB currently, in developing Agro-Maritime 4.0, which is very relevant to the existing agribusiness development, which can be conducted through several strategies. The first is Agro-Maritime as a focus to sustainable development, focusing from village as a center growth. Second one, using economic digital to increase efficiency and access resources, which can be implemented to every agribusiness subsystem. Third one, conducting innovations to support techno-sociopreneurship. Distinguished guests, before ending this speech, allow me to open officially the international seminar on agribusiness and economic recovery in 2021. Congratulations to the Department of Agribusiness, Faculty of Economic and Management, IBB University, to conduct this event. Thank you very much for the speakers for sharing their thought in the seminar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Arif Satria, for officially opening the seminar. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we now move to our main agenda, the plenary session. It is now my honor to introduce the speakers. The first speaker is Professor Song Soo Lim, Professor at Department of Food and Resource Economics, Korea University. The second speaker is Dr. Haryanto, Associate Professor in Agribusiness, Department of Agribusiness, IPB University. The third speaker is Dr. Ammar Abdul Aziz, Senior Lecturer in Agribusiness, School of Agriculture and Food Sciences, the University of Queensland, Australia. This session is chaired by Dr. Suharno, Associate Professor in Agribusiness, Department of Agribusiness, IPB University. I would like to say hello to Bapak Suharno. Good morning, Bapak Suharno.
Good morning, Ibu Atria.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. And it's my pleasure to join in this very important international seminar. Thank you.
It is good to hear from you. Bapak Suharno, you have a floor.
Thank you, Ibu Atria. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And this is the first plenary session of international seminar on agribusiness with main theme agribusiness and economic recovery. As introduced by Ibu Atria, my name is Suharno from Department of Agribusiness, Faculty of Economics and Management, IPB University. relevance to the situation, I want to begin by once again wishing you my personal best to everyone, to you and your families' health and safety in this still global pandemic time. Today, we are still confronted with pandemic-caused economic crisis like no other. The impact of this crisis is huge, both in size and measures or dimensions. So among other sectors, fortunately, if you like, agribusiness sector is deemed to be the one with high resilience, also in its capacity to recover. So how this relationships, recovery and agribusiness, it looks like has been performing and is going to be performed in the next time, or to be able to be a lead sector in recovery. We hope this theme will be revealed in these plenary sessions. Today, that's why we'll learn from 3 invited speakers about this relationship from those who has been devoting their time in finding out the answer to these issues. They may already get a clear description on that, or maybe they are now in time of testing their hypothesis about the relationships, or even maybe some of the 3 has already a scientific clue to offer policy options on how to get recovery speedy and fruitful. So they are about to share with us their thought, finding, or maybe their guess, scientific guess, or even, again, formulated policy option on making the agribusiness sector as a lead sector for economic recovery, both from macroeconomic as well as microeconomic, or maybe from management science. Yeah, and we are fortunate to have 3 speakers coming from different universities. The first is Professor Dr. Song Soo Lim, which is professor at Department of Food and Resource Economics, South Korea University. His training background is PhD in Agriculture Economic, Department of Agriculture Economic, Texas A&M University, and current subject interest is in economic impact of Australia-China trade dispute in agriculture, development, among others, yeah, development of global value chains for agricultural product in Asia, and then also reform of fisheries subsidies in the WTO. Professor Lim is currently teaching on the following subject: agriculture, trade and negotiation, and then agriculture development. Wait a minute. Agriculture development and international trade theories and practice, and market and the economy. This is our first speaker on this our plenary section. The next and second speakers is Dr. Haryanto, who is Associate Professor in Agribusiness, Department of Agribusiness, IPB University, with the following training background. He is he got their his PhD in Agriculture Economics for La Trobe University, Australia. He once be expert staff of President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, and his primary research interest is agriculture economic in general, agricultural development and policy, and currently teaching about agricultural planning, development, macroeconomics, and welfare economics. And the third speaker is Dr. Ammar Abdul Aziz, who is senior lecturer in agribusiness in Queensland University, Australia. He is a PhD holder from School of Geography, Planning and Environmental Management, the University of Queensland. He is extensively involved in research and development collaboration with Malaysian Ministry of Agriculture and Malaysian Agriculture Research and Development Institute. His primary research interest currently is identifying and developing sustainable agribusiness model in developing countries. The theme which is so relevant to us, especially Indonesia or other Southeast Asia tropical countries. And then integrating the innovation and adoption of technology, financial and risk management techniques, and general management practices to achieve improved sustainability and livelihood outcomes. So to the three speakers, welcome and thank you very much, Professor Lim, Dr. Haryanto, and Dr. Ammar Abdul, of sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, or maybe your guess, scientific guess, in addressing the relationships between agribusiness and economic recovery. So let's just start by first inviting, so it will be in row. The speaker will be speaking from first Professor Dr. Song Sulim, and then Dr. Haryanto, and then Dr. Ammar Abdul Aziz. I first invite Professor Lim. So Professor, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Swaruto, your kind introduction. And this morning is a little bit chill in Seoul, Korea, so my attire seems a little bit heavier compared to, I think, many people participating in this conference. Please bear with me. I'd like to ask the host to allow me to upload my file.
Yes.
Okay, today's topic is about in the middle of what the prospects of recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. What would be the opportunities or some the challenges we have to address? My topic contains a bit macro aspects. So this will give you some food for thoughts how we can deal with these challenges and what would be the future for that. So basically, I want to go over this topic from the global value chains point of view, and what would be the opportunities and challenges faced by the agribusiness in the Asian context. As you know, the agriculture value chains include all actors and activities from the very beginning of input to all the way to the end users or consumers, and how we can make this value chain is effective in the economic systems. We can say that this is a win-win outcomes for all participants in the chain. And the global value chain especially hinges on open economies and lean production method. I said lean production mean what? The companies or producers, they will outsource those products from the world market, so they don't have to produce what they have to prepare all those materials or the intermediate stuff by themselves, so they can maintain lean production system. That is kind of it for that. Some definitions behind this notion, global value chain. I think most of you already know about this definition, so let me go rapidly about the basic core, the concepts behind that. I use here is a domestic origin value added, DVA. This is basically the part of gross exports where value added originated from those country who export that good. And on the other hand, we have a backward linkages, or FBB. This is just something you import those intermediate goods. I'm sorry, you just send your goods to foreign countries. Then the foreign countries receive these products or intermediate good, and they process it and turn it into the final good and export to the third country. The global value chain participation is defined by the sum of this foreign origin value added plus and domestic value that embedded in the foreign the products. And also I use this VAX ratio in my data set here. This VAX ratio indicate some those global value chain integration. So I will explain that with the real numbers. And following from the World Trade Organization's recent publication in 2019, this diagram illustrates those concepts. Basically, you import, the country import the products from the partner economy, and they can send these products, export this one to the another partner economies. So we can see these value chains among countries. Then they export good to this partner economy. Then they use this one as an input for another final good, and they export to the third economies. So we can link those countries participating in international trade and try to identify those portions of value addition. Okay, that is how we do this global value chain analysis. For Indonesian cases, I follow this ASEAN Japan Center publication in 2021. So I summarize major findings by their research. So this is for your reference. I don't have to repeat this contents, but you will check out those publications to see those development of Indonesian's cases. One thing I take a note here is for agriculture sectors in Indonesia, so those foreign added value, foreign origin value added FBB share in their total export is rather small. In other words, if you look at this domestic value added, most of those other global export made by Indonesia, and most of those products, the primary products are based upon the domestically produced the inputs. As you see from this diagram, domestic value added account for majority of Indonesian export. Well, this is also true, we see for international comparison, and we find that this domestic value added portion is larger, relatively speaking. And again, this is ASEAN, the Japan, the centers, the analysis on the basis of 2017 for those the foreign origin value added. This is we call it the backward linkages in the value chain. Is rather small, and major source of that products is come from the Asia. On the other hand, each domestic value added TVA is account for very large amount. So Indonesians, the agriculture sector's value chain rely on domestic sources a lot. From this analysis, we can have some hint that probably in the future, Indonesia has some room to improve their global value chain, the participation in the agriculture sector. Well, I redo this analysis from the Asian Development Bank, the database. It's a multi-regional input-output table in 2019. And this database has Asian countries, like 26 Asian countries in total, out of total 62 economies. So I chose those few: China and Indonesia, India, Japan, Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, and Kazakhstan, 6 countries for this analysis. And I try to compare the global value chains participation with the agriculture sector and the food sector. Food sector is semi-processed, areas. Then we can compare their GVC participation with the manufacturing sectors to find out how agriculture sector or food sectors are responding to this development of the global value chain in comparison with the second industry, like the manufacturing areas. This is what the agriculture sectors are doing in those countries. If you look at Indonesia, out of their total export in agricultural products, domestic value added is account for majority of that. This is also true for other other Asian economies, such as India and China. We can also find Thailand and Vietnam. We see this relatively large share of domestic value added. But interestingly enough, we find that the agricultural goods here is the forward linkages, TVX. China export agricultural good to the trading partners. Then those trading partners imports from Chinese products, and they use them as the processed good. Then they re-export to third countries. So China provides lots of their agricultural raw products or semi-processed products to the world market. Then countries use this raw or processed agricultural products, semi-processed agricultural products, to export to the world market. So China has a very large role in the areas. We can also find Thailand. Thailand agriculture sectors also, put lots of their products into the world market as raw products or intermediate products. When you calculate this VAX ratio, we can find that, including Korea and Japan and other Asian countries, this ratio is rather high. But if you look at Vietnam is about 67%, according to my calculation. This means that Vietnam's global value chain participation is rather the higher compared to other Asian countries. Food sectors analysis is very similar, but we find very high participation in Vietnam, and compared to this manufacturing sectors overall, the VAX ratio is smaller than food or the agriculture sector, that means what manufacturing sectors or the second industry, they have a higher level of the concentration or integration into the trade business in the world market. So from this analysis, we can summarize some my finding from this ADB database. DVA, or domestic the origin value added, is a main element in agricultural products or food export compared to manufacturing sectors. But we also find for China or Thailand cases, the agricultural exports are widely used in the production of other countries' agricultural or food export. In other words, even domestic value added tends to be large in the composition of the Asian countries' export. We still find some areas to improve, such as those products can be important source or important inputs for the other countries that export to the world market. And relatively speaking, the high VAX ratios indicate a lower degree of global value chain participation for agri-food products. That's why I challenge this morning for the Indonesian agriculture as well as other Asian agriculture that greater global value chain participation can be some agribusiness benefit. There is still room to improve. We can find from this analysis. Second topic, COVID-19 effect. As you know, we have disturbances in to supply part, as well as disturbances to demand one. I find this study, they try to approach this disturbances from some systematic components versus the governing institution. The governing institution at a corporate level or the regional or central government level, there is some way to improve this governing institution given this the disturbances or the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that is the very important task before us, how we can use this governing institution to reduce or attenuate those negative impact arising from this pandemic. In Korea's cases, the obvious the negative impact from COVID-19 were the shortage of foreign workers in farm sectors. This is huge. Not only this country, but we can find this unskilled labor shortage in many developed economies, such as European countries as well, Canada and United States. Another report, we can find that this negative impact on exporters, because they used to rely on this backward linkages, or this effect is larger because they rely on imports. But this disturbance in trade will did actually detriment impact on those importers' performance. But another study find that here, international firms who are more integrated into the world market, they were more resilient than domestic market-oriented firms. So this is a very interesting observation. Okay? Even we have this worldwide pandemic, those international firms are more resilient compared to domestic firms. I think this is we need more study about this finding and what were the driving forces behind this outcome. Resilience of agribusiness, because we have a specialist in agribusiness in this audience, so you all know about those agriculture, the resilience. I want to highlight only this part from trade cases. In 2020, this is the first year of pandemic, you find that those trade in all products in the world trade reduced by 8%. If you go into sector level, the automobile or the parts of the vehicle or aircraft, things like that, their reduction is rather large. Even in electronics, yeah. But if you look at the agriculture sector in 2020, actually their trade value increased by 3.5%. This is the amazing result. In other words, agricultural trade, even in the middle of this pandemic, they recorded positive growth in the economy. So this is one indicator that farm sectors, agribusiness sectors are quite resilient to these external shocks. This is something very interesting observation, how we can maximize those resilience arising from these farm sectors or agribusiness. For Indonesia specific impact, I believe many presenters will address these issues. So this is my own summary from those things. If I'm wrong, please correct me after my presentation. And food security challenges in Indonesia, I think this is one of the greatest concern during this pandemic. And even rural household, many the population or rural people rely on imports. In other words, even Indonesia is big players in rice production and trade. The large proportion of rural household, they are net importers, not exporters. Okay, they net buyers. I would say net buyers. So if rice price is high, then many households get challenged, maybe food security or nutrition security point of view. That would be very challenged for those net food buyers or rice buyers in Indonesia. And I also note that there are many small or medium enterprises or middlemen in the Indonesian food chains. Small players are dominating. That means what? That potentially the cost is high, lack of economies of scale. This will be very challenging for that. And small scale farm structure, low-skilled the non-farm employment situations. Okay, this also contribute to the major non-farm sector incomes. So we need to improve, given this background, how we can improve Indonesian farm sectors, performance. That would be the great challenge. I hope this conference will find some solution for that. Okay, this is a bit last year's the publication by IFRI, this institute, and they gave some assessment about Indonesian farm sectors, those resilience from the COVID-19. If you look at the agriculture sectors, they give this minimal impact by this simulation. If you look at the export demand, on the other hand, they find there are some impact, some decline in the demand for Indonesian exportable goods. And the lower export demand and agricultural good, then they can find simulated models result. So lastly, I want to present what would be the future, what would be the opportunities in terms of those value chains or global value chain, how agribusiness need to embrace this new normal. So I present 3 dimensions here is what food quality and safety, and the digital innovation and transformation, and what restructuring those value chain, putting more emphasis on local supply network. Okay, the worker safety and product quality, or demand for worker safety and product quality actually increased due to this pandemic. That means what? We need to prepare to bear with the higher cost, because as you increase those safety level or food quality level, then you need to add more extra cost for that. You need to increase those capacity. And at the same time, we can expect that automate like robots or some like a digital or devices basis, the linkages among those the food chain, supply chain would be increased, and the product traceability requirement would be also heightened. So consumers, they want to know what food they are consuming and how this the inputs or the source of this ingredient are coming from. They want to know more the food quality related information. And as you know, digital innovation and industry 4.0, we use now is artificial intelligence technology and data platform, including this cloud basis data or big data use in the food sectors or even agriculture sectors. Supply side, we can also link those upstream the value chain with this information, and we can provide those demand prediction. So you can maintain the optimum level of the stock holdings, and you can rapidly meet this demand without any the incurring cost to maintain too much storage or stock holding. And some example is what is like a smart farms now, especially in Korean the farming the environment, we can find the very importance of this agricultural technology using this AI, the animals disease, and they can have a proper treatment for that, and the weeding robots. And this is like a microbe. This is something like the managing the farming, the management systems, devices, so you can control those farming activities. Also, Walmart are developing this blockchain technology for those lettuce and spinach. This is one example you can find in Korea. If you see, this is one of our survey station. It's a metro station. They built this experimental farms, like a vertical, those indoor the farm, and this kind of, we say this the smart metro farm. Well, even urban agriculture. It's urban areas in the middle of those buildings, inside the buildings. This is subway buildings in metro. You can have this vertical farm that you get some fresh vegetables in all seasons. Okay. So this management of this smart farm is automatic. They can control those humidity or CO2 the contents or things like that. Okay, that is that I think we will see more development in these areas. Finally, localizing the localization in the outsourcing structure. Now, because of this international trade disturbances, now they want to secure these ingredients, and more multiple or flexible or alternative suppliers, they try to find that, and they will have more local substitute and near sourcing. The obvious challenge from this one is, higher cost of that, because on the global value chain, the pure form of global value chain, you can outsource your ingredients from the most efficient suppliers or least cost, the providers. But under this local outsourcing, probably you have to sacrifice those efficiency or minimum cost with some security or some like a stability of your one. So this is some challenges, how you can ensure that this flexibility or resilience at the expenses of the efficiency. So let me conclude for my the contents today. We need to reassessment about this COVID-19 and the agricultural value chain development, especially from how to ensure those efficiency based upon free trade, and at the same time those offsetting factor like a potential risk outsourcing from long distance suppliers or from the world market, and diversification of source of supply like localization, and also that has increased the potential cost of outsourcing. So we need to find some balances. We need to strike a balances between the benefit, diversification or security, resilience, safeguarding versus those costs from some inefficiency. Another challenge is, I didn't cover today, but another challenge is like a trade dispute in the major agricultural countries. Now we see China and United States since 2018. Now Australia and China, now they are doing this trade disputes. So like this property right issues and other issues now, dumping or things like that. Indonesia has great opportunities in the middle of this international struggles that Indonesia can increase their the identities as agricultural producers and exporters in the world market. I think this is a great opportunities for agribusiness in Indonesia. Digital transformation is obviously it's a direction of future. So even small producers, it is very important for them to adopt these new technologies. So it should be spread to all areas, but we need some basic infrastructure for this. And finally, I ask for international corporations and institutional reform, not only WTO context, but also we can do this for Asian, the ASEAN the economy, or those free trade agreements with the other countries. I think Indonesia can play a big in this aspect. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your the attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Lim. We have learned from his presentations how international trade conduct and performance can give insight on drawing the recommendations on using the potential of agribusiness of a country to be main sectors in making recovery. Thank you very much for your presentations, the excellent ones. And now I'm inviting Dr. Haryanto to present your materials for our session. Time is yours, Dr. Haryanto.
Thank you, Pak Harno. Good morning, distinguished speaker, Professor Song Sulim, and also Dr. Amar Abdulaziz. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to convey my thoughts about agribusiness development in Indonesia. Please allow me to share screen. The purpose of development is basically to improve the welfare of the people. So far, much attention has been paid to economic growth, to efficiency. However, with the inclusion of provision to achieve a better distribution of income in development, as mandated in legislation, the aspect of equity and, of course, also poverty reduction has become an indicator that is getting more attention. Indonesia development has shown an improvement in income distribution. However, the COVID-19 pandemic seemed to be worsening the income distribution, shown by Gini ratio declining after we have pandemic COVID-19. It appears that development in Indonesia is still centered on the island of Java. The total area of Java is only 7% of the total area of Indonesia, but Java contribute more than 59% to the creation of national input. To produce food, Java more than 65%. Agribusiness development is expected is not only to increase national economic growth, but also to improve the distribution of income between sectors and also between region. The importance of agriculture sector as a primary product producer in Indonesia is shown by 58% of agriculture sector production used in the processing or manufacturing sector. On the contrary, only less than 3% of manufacturing sector product used by the agriculture sector. The problem in agriculture sector, of course, could be transmitted to the agribusiness system as in developed countries, the concept of agribusiness development has undergone multiple fundamental change, where the center of attention of agribusiness is not on the farm, but shift to the final consumer. Agribusiness in developed countries has characteristics larger, diversified, complex, new requirement for accounting, financial reporting, marketing relationship, increase the complexity of agribusiness firms. The characteristics also strategic, long-term thinking about scarce resources, have pushed many firms to manage carefully natural resources, often in a way that makes resource sustainability a competitive advantage. Agribusiness in developed countries also political. Political pressure manifests in safety, quality, ecology, access to water, and of course also to power and conservation. All of this motivating many agribusiness firms to become politically active and also multinational. Many agribusiness products are exported worldwide. The development strategy of modern agribusiness is basically based on the value chain theory of Porter. The concept of strategy to increase competitiveness at the company level, at the firm's level, was later expanded to a strategic concept of value creation along supply chains, both at industry level and at the global level. Efficiency is the main criterion for the success of the global value chains. Increasing the economy through efficiency, of course, require all parts along the value chain must also be efficient. For Indonesia, of course, in addition to increasing efficiency along the value chain, it's also hoped that social improvement will be created because economic growth in agribusiness, especially in agricultural sector, is also expected to be a means for reducing poverty. The agriculture sector, although its role in national output is decreasing, but its share is still large. The agriculture sector as a sector that produces primary product, as well as agribusiness sector, basically still a domestic business in its orientation. Content of import and export in the GDP of agriculture sector is relatively low. The share of agriculture sector in GDP has consistently declined. However, the decline in output is not accompanied by a more rapid decline in the share of employment. As a result, the burden on the agriculture sector in terms of labor relative to the output it produces remain high. The declining share of the agricultural sector relative to the share of the non-agricultural sector is basically the result of a slower growth in the agriculture sector compared to non-agriculture sector. From the table, it can be seen that the growth of agriculture sector is much lower than the growth of the manufacturing sector. Even the agriculture sector, the growth is far below the national average. In addition to changing the structure of the national economy, the structure of agriculture sector has also changed. At first, the food crop and horticulture subsector were very prominent. Then gradually, the non-food crops subsector, especially plantation, livestock, and fisheries, grew rapidly in contributing to the GDP of agriculture sector. Changes in which the share of the plantation, livestock, and fishery subsector are increasing indicate that the agriculture sector increasingly leading to commercialization. The element of subsistence in agriculture are decreasing. The increasingly commercial agricultural sector and diminishing role of the food and beverage subsector can certainly affect the development of agribusiness as a whole. The processing industry and other downstream sector are expected to have a bigger role. Agribusiness as a system is also expected to be more efficient. Efficiency is not only required at the on-farm level, but also in downstream agribusiness, processing, marketing, until the product reaches the end consumer. In order for growth of agribusiness to be sustainable, and the growth also create social improvement, the equity of agribusiness along the value chains should also be increased. Because based on various researches, it can be found that the distribution of benefit that arises along the value chain is not necessarily equitable. Farm labor and farm entrepreneur usually get the smallest share. Study by Musdalifah Mahmud on rubber industry in Jambi, so that the value created along the rubber industry value chain, farm workers only get a share of 2.31%. Likewise, rubber farming households, which usually also acts as a village level collector, get a much smaller share than other sector. Inequality can also be seen from the price spread of marketing margin of agricultural products, such as shallot and red chili. Although the product doesn't undergo significant changes in form from the producer level to the consumer hand, the price spread that appear measured in percentage of the price at the producer level is very large. The large price spread mainly appear in the marketing channel leading to the retail level of the modern market. Similar condition also occur along the supply chain of rice industry, where the price spread that occur from the producer level to the wholesale level shown inefficient. Farmers bear the inefficiency at the downstream agribusiness level in the form of relatively low price receipt. The price that farmer receive for the unhashed grain they produce only 4,600 rupiah, much lower than the price charged at the rice milling unit level, more than 10,000 rupiah per kg. Along the agribusiness value chain, farmers is the most vulnerable position in the event of a shock in the economy. Learning from the 2008 crisis, when the Indonesia economy experienced severe shocks due to the financial sector crisis in the US and Europe, triggered by subprime mortgage problem. And as a result of also soaring oil or energy price, it can be seen that low-income people in rural and urban areas suffer more. Relatively, farm labor household in rural areas and low-income household in urban areas in much worse condition than other households category. The same condition is expected to occur during the economic crisis caused by the current COVID-19 pandemic. When compared before and during the COVID-19 pandemic, except for smaller estate crops subsector, all terms of trade at the farmers and agriculture have decreased. Meanwhile, we know that at the same time, more household consumption expenditure is dedicated to food. household expenditure on food and beverage other than restaurants have increased. But as we look at table before, the term of trade of the farmer and agriculture decrease. Perhaps because food as a dominant portion in household expenditure, and household expenditure also occupies the largest position in GDP. So there are efforts or policies to try to prevent food prices from rising. Or maybe it's also possible, as stated by Prof. Song Sulin from the study of Iksan and Virananda, many farming households are basically is net buyer position in fulfilling their food. So when the country economy is in state of shock, theoretically, it will actually be relatively easier to make fundamental changes that are aimed not only at increasing efficiency and competitiveness, but also for improving equity, more equitable economic distribution. To increase the competitiveness of Indonesian agribusiness, I propose 3 strategies that can be done. First is transforming agriculture sector. Then the second, localizing agribusiness. And third is connecting to bigger and richer entities. These 3 strategies basically complement, I think, and strengthen each other. The first strategy is intended to carry out transformation at the on-farm level. As part of business system, of course, activities at the on-farm level, hopefully also driven by business decisions. Big are based on benefit and cost. It needs a fundamental change at the farm level, particularly on farm, which still contain element of subsistence, to turn it into a fully commercial entity. Many public intervention on agriculture market have been carried out for quite long time. Therefore, the transformation needs to be done gradually. Market mechanism need time to function efficiently after getting used to the intervention for a long time. Also, the farmer need time to be able to take advantage of the opportunity presented by the market. The second strategy is to develop agribusiness at the local level. This strategy is intended to increase the price of product that can be obtained by farmers and to develop a farm activities. Of course, this second strategy requires adequate input, skill, and management capacity to develop agribusiness at the local level. Several important benefits can be obtained from the establishment of local agribusiness, because local agribusiness generally uses local resources and labor and create multiplier effects that can dynamize the local economy to grow rapidly. The result of this second strategy will not to be sustainable if it is not able to create local agribusiness that is well and efficiently connected to agribusiness value chains at the national and global level. The development of agribusiness, especially downstream agribusiness at the local level, will basically experience the same problem as business development at the on-farm level. Local business entities generally also face limited capital, technology, and managerial skills and abilities. Therefore, local agribusiness need to be connected with stronger and research entities that able to attract local agribusiness to compete in national and global value chain. It can be concluded that the existing inequality in agribusiness structure can be an obstacle to effort to improve the competitiveness of Indonesia agribusiness at the national and global level. There is a need for transformation, not only at the on-farm level, but also along the agribusiness value chain, so that various market imperfections can be overcome, and benefits it's created would be spread justly. All participants along agribusiness value chains. Thank you for all conference participants. Back to Pak Suwarno.
So thank you very much, Dr. Haryanto, for presenting your idea about the relationship between agribusiness development and equality. And to me, it is rather surprising to come to the conclusions that what has been delivered by Haryanto, Dr. Haryanto, is actually the same as what has been delivered by Professor Davis and Goldberg about 50 years ago, that benefit created by value chain is benefiting more to non-farms entities. That is surprising. I think it is a phenomenon of Indonesia, so we have a great challenge on that. And what is more surprising for me is that the recommendations coming from Dr. Haryanto and Professor Lim is many things in common. It's surprising. I guess that it is a true recommendation, especially as if it is applied to Indonesian economy. Thank you very much. I will read in more detail in the last part of our sessions. And now is the time for Dr. Amar Abdul Aziz to present your materials, and time is yours.
Good. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
I would like to say thank you to the organizing committee, PAMZOL, the rest of the organizing committee, and sessions chair, Dr. Suwarno, and the other speakers, Professor Song Soo Lim and Dr. Haryanto. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here today to deliver a presentation, which I think will surprise you as well, Dr. Suwarno, because it ties in really well with those key themes that have been delivered before by the previous speakers, which was global value chains and equitable income distribution. Before I begin, I'd also like to thank my fellow colleagues who's worked really hard in delivering, and this is a culmination of many years of research. Adit, Fazli, and Fatin who's helped me with the presentation. And I'd like to begin with a saying, which is, so that I don't forget, understanding is a three-edged sword. Your story, my story, and the truth. And I guess as academics, that is what we all achieve, or we aim to achieve, which is the truth. And at the back of our head, scholars and academics alike, we are all captives of evidence. So, you know, in all our arguments, we have to present evidence. And I hope today that's what I'll do in terms of my presentation, which is unleashing the true lessons from COVID. Now, agribusiness, before the definition of agribusiness, but I'd like to add another one, which is agribusiness is also a way of thinking. Agribusiness is a way of us looking at agriculture and business at the same time. It's also a way of looking at a system. Elements within the value chain that interacts, that provides outcomes, and understanding these elements is very important. So understanding agribusiness as a way of thinking, understanding agribusiness as a system is I think very crucial as we move forward into this into a new era. And agribusiness as a whole, whether we're in Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, was hit by an unseen enemy, COVID, which has impacted all the actors or stakeholders or elements across the value chain. And there was a lot of studies that have already been done, but I'm going to do a short, what we call a review of reviews. So COVID hit in March, maybe January 2020, but there's already a number of review papers out there looking at what the impacts are and the opportunities that we seized during the COVID-19, especially from the perspective of agriculture. So of these 13 papers that we reviewed, that we looked at, we highlighted some of the key lessons that we've learned. We looked at consumer income, which was constrained due to people losing jobs. There was, the story was painted really bleak when we started getting into COVID. I remember when we were in Australia, there was talk about house prices falling more than 30%. And here we are today, house prices have jumped more than 20% instead of declining by 30%. There were talks about impact on agriculture. I lecture agribusiness here at the University of Queensland. I've never seen more jobs than I have in the past 6 years. We used to say there's 6 jobs for every graduate. Now we say there's 8 to 10 jobs for every graduate. So it's an exciting time. It has been a challenging time for the world, but for agriculture, by and large, it's been an exciting time for us, especially those in the industry. Changing access and availability and affordability of food, in terms of food security, has been a huge issue. Inputs and logistics, infrastructure disruption, food's not getting to where they're meant to go. Food's not, inputs not getting where to where they're meant to go. Changing of reliance and vulnerability of producers. Professor Song Sulim highlighted a nice thing earlier, talking about how the international companies were more resilient, which was an interesting research topic to look at. Change in business models. Agricultural firms all around the world had to think on their feet. How do we react to this? How do we change? And we saw lots of changes, which I'll talk to you in the next slide. And then there was also changing in food consumption, some good, some bad, more alcohol consumption, more snack food, more fast food. So these were some of the impacts that we saw across the chain. A similarity across the reviews that we saw, most of the impact or most of the COVID impact that was analyzed was on food systems. But we got to remember, as I said earlier, agribusiness is a system, and it's a big system. It's not just about food system, it's about agricultural. So if we can take a step back and look at agribusiness as the production of agricultural products as we go along this presentation. So what were the opportunities that were seized by the agricultural sector? Well, we saw digitalization in production and marketing. The transformation or digital transformation of agriculture was pretty much brought forward by many years because people had to change, people had to innovate, people had to change the way they sold their product, how they consume their product, how they sell their product. We've seen Uber, the growth of Uber, Panda Food, or just pressing a button on your phone to get your food at home. And there was also innovation in the food side, like they were looking at, how do we improve immunity of eating better food? And there was improvements in food packaging. But I guess one of the things, all in all, what I've just presented was just a summary of the impact of COVID on agribusiness by and large, particularly in food systems. But what we've learned is connectivity. I think that's the biggest thing that COVID has brought to realization. One is the problem of connectivity, solving the problems of connectivity. Even smallholder farmers with a smartphone was able to market chilies, for example, and I'm sure my colleagues there at IPB were involved in lots and lots of interesting projects looking at how to connect consumers or producers and consumers, shortening the chain. So connectivity, I would like to think, was one of the biggest things that came out of COVID, both challenge and opportunity. And well, as you can see, my name is, if it's spelled, is Dr. Amar, and if you put it together, it's drama. So there's no, my presentations are full of drama. So here's where it starts. So this is what my presentation is about today. What did we learn? What was the true lessons that we learned from COVID? As you can see the picture that I have there, what we truly learned in COVID, I guess, apart from the impacts and opportunities, and I'd like to use this platform today to be a voice for many of the smallholders that are not able to voice themselves. I like to think of myself as smallholder. Many of you know I used to plant chilies. I know how it feels to be a smallholder. So I want to use this platform to be a voice for smallholders, particularly of a crop. So we've looked at global value chains on a global level. We've looked at multiple crops by Dr. Arianto. I want to focus on a single crop. And what we see, the true lesson that we've learned, and this is my side of the story, whether it's the truth or not, you'll have to decide, is the widening of this divide, the widening of the chasm between producers and consumers. And to shed some light on this, I'd like to take you on a journey to take a look at prices. Here's the price of palm oil. Many of you know palm oil. I'd say maybe 50, please correct me if I'm wrong, 50 to 60% owned by larger corporations. There are participation of smallholder farmers, maybe up to 40% in general. The red box there you see on the right is when COVID hit. I looked at September 2019. You can see how the prices dipped for a while and then just went up the roof. It's doing 4,900, reaching $5,000, almost reaching $5,000. And there's talks of tightening of supply moving forward until Ramadan next year. And if you look at the price, so this chart is the price of 25 years, you can see that it's increased. I've done the calculation, is about more than double, 108% increase over the 25 years. So that's palm oil. Beautiful story. Opportunity in COVID. And when you look at copra, copra is another nice story. We've seen the prices of copra increase as well. And if you look over a period of 25 years, almost a similar story as palm oil, 107% increase over the years. And there's so many things. So there are issues in coconuts. For example, they've got to replace. So there's a lot of exciting research for young researchers that are looking for opportunities, looking at how to replace coconut trees. We've got a lot of aging coconut trees. There's already a lot of work connecting growers in the Pacific to the market, like producing coconut water and so on. And copra is part of the thing. But then we take a step back. We've looked at copra, we've looked at palm oil. Take a step back. Let's look at something a little bit more, forgive me if I were to use this word, something a little bit more depressing. And this was touched by Pa Arianto, which is just perfect, which gives me the opportunity to show this. Look at rice. One of the most important crop that we've got. These prices are what your smallholders, the growers, are actually getting. And the prices have actually declined. It went up for a while and it's now lower than it was before the COVID. And look, over 25 years, it's hardly budged by 23%. I'm not an expert in rice, so I won't be talking about rice to you today. But this sorts of sets things in motion about agribusiness and how inequitable the income distribution is across global value chains or across value chains. And I think it's an important problem. But what I'd like to talk to you about today It's a crop which I'm passionate about. I've got a couple of my PhD students that are working on this. Some have already done some really interesting work, which I'll share with you in a bit. It's rubber. Rubber, if you look at the prices, it improved for a while. There was a small little party that they had said rubber prices are improving, but now it's not where it was now. It's already started to decline. And if you look over a period of 25 years, it's barely increased more than 70%. And you can see how flat that graph is. So we've looked at all those graphs, right? Now, here's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about rubber. And if we go back to about agricultural systems and that picture I showed you about the guy standing across those the widening chasm, the divide that's growing longer, here's to put things into perspective. Okay? Keep this, etch this graph in your mind. And you imagine a farmer has not had a 70% increase over 25 years, has not made any increase over a COVID period, but we see glove makers making 1,646% profit surge quarterly. So that's the divide that I'm talking about. And this puts it into context. That's a drama where I share you numbers and figures. And when you sit down and think about these numbers and figures, you're thinking, well, hang on a minute. You've got farmers toiling out there in poverty. Those prices that, if I've got this right, Malaysia is now trading probably at 289 a kilo, which is just barely above or barely below the cost of production, right? I'd say below the cost of production. That's a perspective for smallholder farmers. And we've got producers reaping the rewards of COVID. Now, I want to talk to you about rubber, and I'll tell you where the story is wrong about this whole industry. And this is, to me, is the truest lesson that I've learned from COVID. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, I'm sure Indonesia, karet is a word everybody knows about rubber, but I just want to put things into perspective. We've got a lot of participants today, and some of you have heard of rubber, but some of you might not know. Without rubber, we can't fly. We can't fly, because rubber is important for the planes the tires in aeroplanes. You'd have to have natural rubber. It's important for 40 to 50,000 of industrial products. In the 1970s, they used to say could produce about 9,000 kilograms per hectare. Today, we're still producing barely in Indonesia, maybe 800 to 1,000 kilos per hectare. In Malaysia, maybe 1,004, under 2,000 kilos per hectare. So we're so far away from the potential yield. And the interesting story is this, that, rubber is important for earthquake bearings, important for tires that we use to travel. Rubber is an important product for our economic recovery moving forward, particularly if we're moving towards the digital transformation. Food's moving. How's food moving if it's not by your sole or shoes, it's by the tires spinning around? And who's responsible for producing rubbers? You might ask. 6 million. 6 million producing rubbers in about 11 million hectares of land. I've got that right. And this 6 million smallholder plantation or smallholder rubber growers, most of them are living in poverty. Now, has rubber been hit by COVID? Yes, it's been hit. It's like any other agricultural commodity. You've seen how the prices have reacted. They've not reap the benefits as the glove holders or the tire makers or everything else who's been reaping rewards. They've not done that. They have in fact gone backwards. If you have to check on this, well, maybe just to give you an example, maybe 5 years or 10 years ago, they could have bought 2 kilos of rice. Now they can probably barely buy half a kilo of rice with a kilo of rubber. But there was something else that happened in rubber. It wasn't just COVID. And this is what amazes me the most. It was this. And you're looking at this, and some of you who may know rubber might think, oh, this is wintering. It's a normal part, where when rubber sheds its leaf at a certain period because of the dry weather. But this is not wintering. This is a rubber leaf disease. And it's impacted multiple countries. So here's to give you an idea. It hit North Sumatra in December 2017, in Indonesia and Malaysia, October, November in 2018, South Sumatra this time. And just before COVID, July, August, and September, it hit India, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. and God knows where else it's spread to. What does it do? What does this disease do? Well, it impacts leaf falls. It drops the leaf like nobody's business. It impacts the health of the tree. If you can see the red bar on the side there. It impacts the return, the yield, by half. And when the yield is impacted, so are the growers. So we've done a little bit of work in this space, which I'd like to share you. So apart from COVID, what we found was one of the things that's important. So if you're looking at these two graphs, so this was a work done by one of my students, Fatin. He's done a terrific job. He's almost finishing a PhD. We looked at total monthly rainfall on the left, and we looked at average monthly temperature. Those red dots are where we ran a test to see when did it change. And we saw a change, an abrupt change in temperature in June 2014. We saw an abrupt change in total monthly rainfall in December 2013. But what highly correlated with the leaf, and when we did the analysis, it was the increase in temperature. Of course, we're doing a lot more work now, trying to identify and ascertain in all these different other countries. But this goes on to show to you that not only rubber was impacted by COVID, but they've got another problem on the other hand. But who's heard of a rubber leaf disease? Who's heard that farmers are not eating, farmers are getting their cut? Nobody. So here's a picture to put things into perspective again. And for most of you, and I'll translate that, sudah jatuh tertimpa tangga, which means basically, not only have they fallen off the ladder, now the ladder has come on top of them. So I think you would think, fellow participants, when we hear this story, we would think that, the producers, the ones that have reaped the rewards, would step up and make a change, step up and be responsible. But what were the reports that came out? And I'm going to share you two reports. Now, I know this is a newspaper report, but it sort of sums up what the industry thinks. And when I say the industry, these are the consumers at the other end of the chain, not the producers. Here's one. Climate change, capitalism, disease are threatening to strike a mortal blow to the world's rubber trees. Do we need to find an alternative? So the talk here, and I will summarize this in a few points after this and relate that back to what we've done as a research. The key point in this is that, hang on a minute, rubber production is coming low. We think we're going to have a problem. And don't you think we're going to have a problem? Now people are not flying. Imagine when people start flying, imagine when the whole world opens up again, they're going to need a lot of rubber. And there's not a lot of rubber. And what are the producers doing? Instead of helping the producers, they say, let's look for another source of rubber. So we've got to wake up. And when I say we, smallholder farmers have got to wake up, the policymakers, governments that are producing, we've got to wake up and realize what the producers are planning to do. They're planning to find a different source of rubber. And this was a report in BBC. Another report came out in July, not long ago, 2021. They called it the impending rubber apocalypse. What does it mean for the US economy? So they're looking at two things. They're looking at, they don't like calling it Russian dandelion. They say you should call it the Kazakhstan dandelion, because that's where it comes from. Destructive harvesting of rubber. They're looking at opportunities to do that. And one of the things at the end, they say, oh, we encourage billionaires to come and step up forward to find a solution. It wasn't we encourage billionaires to come up and step forward to help the smallholder farmers that can't buy food to eat, but it's to step up to find a different source of rubber. This is a wake-up call for all of us, particularly from Southeast Asia, because I think 70 to 90%, I probably got my numbers wrong, 70 to 90% of rubber probably comes from Southeast Asia. And what did I get from this article? What would I like to share with you? So a lot of distressing news, a lot of wake-up news. But one of the things that I like to pull out, which I pulled out from this, which is I'd like to think that this was the general thoughts of the industry, general thoughts of academia in the Western country. I'm sorry, I have to use that word because it was coming from other countries who are looking at replacing rubber. Here's one of the things they said. They said low rubber prices, and this was from the industry, not an academic institution. Low rubber prices force farmers to overtap the trees to obtain more rubber, weakening the plants and making them more susceptible to disease. Remember the earlier part I said, we scholars and academics are captives of evidence. So I'm going to provide you an evidence. So here's it saying, Then when the rubber farmers doesn't get enough money, what they do is they go out and tap a lot more to get more rubber. How much more can you squeeze out of the tree? Are we saying smallholder farmers are not smart, not knowing when to stop tapping? If I was a smallholder farmer, which I was, I would be stopping tapping and look for something else that would pay to put food on my money to send my kids to schools. And the research that we did, so the paper's there at the bottom there, we looked at this, and what we found was, yes, hold on a second. What we found was, so if you can see, you don't have to read, and I always tell my students not to put things that you don't want people to read. So what I want you to focus on the left that looks red is the global system, and the middle on the blue is the local system. In this case is the Malaysian rubber system. And the one on the right, the green, that's the smallholder rubber system. Let's just call that for argument's sake, right? What we found was that it wasn't because that they were tapping a lot more that was killing the trees. When they don't have enough money, what can't they buy? Not only food, not only about sending the kids to education, they can't buy fertilizers to fertilize the trees. And what happens? They stop tapping. What happens when they stop tapping? They've got to find another job. So that's one evidence. So it's not about rubber farmers going out there, trashing the trees, killing the trees. It's not that. It's just that they don't have money. And why don't they have money to fertilize? Because they're not being paid fair money for their production or their produce. Now, the second one, and I lump these two together. All palm and natural rubber make the same money per unit of land, but the labor input is higher for rubber. Palm oil is doing $5,000. You can get, now, please correct me if I'm wrong, you can get about 4 tons of oil, 4 tons of crude palm oil per hectare. If you multiply that with today's price, and just argument's sake, let's say it's $5,000, that's $20,000 per year per hectare. Rubber, let's say it's $3, not $2.89, $3. You get 1,200. Let's say it's 2,000 kilogram, and you multiply that $6,000. There's a huge difference there. The labor input is much higher, but it's normally smallholders do it, within their families. Some pay for other laborers to come in, but it's kept within the family because they're pretty much fragmented. So it's not the same. And the other thing is because the rubber price is falling, farmers are switching and producing to selling timber for near-term profit. This is something we saw in 2011. I was a witness. I was a farmer then, and we used to have rubber trees on my farm. And when we came back to start the farm, the rubber trees were missing because people thought there was nobody there. What they did was the timber price was so high, they cut the rubber trees and ran away with it. So yes, it's true, it has happened. Growing palm oil instead, well, I've got, and this is where we looked at advantages of oil palm plantation. There are people moving away, but if you look in Malaysia's case, a lot of the palm oil has already taken good land. Where rubber is grown now are all in marginal lands. There's nowhere else to plant. So, you need to plant palm oil in good land, and we're already running out of that. So the other thing that I'd like to highlight, and this is the one that really burns me, there are signs of change. Many of large buyers of rubber, Bridgestone, Continental, Goodyear, have signed up to this thing called Global Platform for Sustainable Natural Rubber. So what is this Global Platform for Sustainable Natural Rubber? It's about making rubber more sustainable. Now, why does this burn me? Well, I'll tell you. Now, rubber sequesters carbon. We always get this argument, it has to be cleared before 1990. Of course, most of the world has cleared it before 1990. So now they tell other people to say, okay, hang on a minute, we cleared ours before 1990. You don't start clearing your land. But we've got people to feed. And the focus here is which forbids buying rubber grown on recently deforested land. I agree. Deforestation is a huge problem. Indonesia knows this better than anyone else. They've had a lot of things that are happening to preserve not just their deforested land, but also their peatland. But the problem with this is this. So we hear about where's the natural, where's this sustainable natural rubber? Now, when you look at your tire, it's made of two things, natural rubber and synthetic rubber, which is this. The question we asked then of these companies, Goodyear and everybody else, of wanting to have sustainable rubber, why don't we have sustainable synthetic rubber? Why can't we have sustainable synthetic rubber? Where does synthetic rubber come from? Petroleum. Who owns this company, synthetic rubber? I'm going to leave that for you to find out. Okay, so these are things that we got to be thinking. So I think instead of pursuing sustainable rubber of deforestation, I think we've got to solve the key problem that's facing us today, which is helping the smallholders make or get equitable income distribution across the global rubber value chain. Now, last but not least, what I want to share is this last thing, which is a good step, forward by private industries. As a company that's campaigning to introduce a fixed minimum price for rubber. Malaysia has already had this for many years, but they say what we want to do is we want to guarantee livelihood of smallholder in developing nations. Now, it's a good step. It's a good first step. It's a good step in the right direction. But here's a report that I want to share with you. This was done by forgot what was done by, but it's done by the Zoological Society. I think that's what it's called. What they did was they looked at 15 natural rubber producers and processors that control about 1.4 million hectares of land, and they assessed them in terms of their smallholders supplying reporting. And if you look at it, 64% says, okay, we've got a commitment. 64% of these 15 countries. It's a small sample, but it's enough to give us an indication. So 64% says, yep, we'll support smallholders. But 36% are yet to make it clear what they're going to support. But what's more sad is that only 2 out of the 14 companies actually report on how they're helping. So what we see is that, yes, producers want to help, manufacturers want to help, but it's not clearly documented how these financial assistance are being delivered. What is it that they're helping? And if you remember correctly, that ladder that was falling on, that disease that's happening right now, I'm actively working in that space. I do not see any funding coming into, because I work closely with a lot of research institutes, and this is just my side of the story. And what I hear is that they're looking for funding. They're actively looking for funding to solve a problem that will enable you, me, and everyone else to fly. I'd love to see the manufacturers step up. Now, here's an interesting thing, which I'm proud to share, and I called my student the other day when I saw this. So we published this in January. We submitted it last year in June. For a lot of you, and I think a lot of us researchers, what we'd like to see is a lot of our research being translated into, whether if it's policy or translated into life. And here's an opportunity. Now, I'm not saying there's a direct link between the two, but at least we highlighted this many months before a change was going to happen. So my student conducted this research about trying to understand production in Malaysia, and what we found, or what he found, was that the average price was supposed to be $3.50, right? At the current moment, so we've got a floor price of $2.50. That's when the support price kicks in Malaysia. But smallholders said that's not enough. It doesn't cover our costs. $3.50 should be it. So we had this presented. And yesterday, or maybe this was on Sunday, just before this talk. And I was sitting down and I was reading the article and I saw this. The plantation will study a proposal to increase the floor plan to $3.50. So this is a beautiful way. It's a beautiful move for one. And as a researcher or an advisor to the person who conducted, Fazli, who conducted this research, it's nice to see a translation of research moving forward and being, implemented in policies. Whether there's a direct link or not, I don't know. But I'd like to think there is. Now, before I conclude, I said there will be drama. I want us to take 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds. I'm going to be quiet for 30 seconds. I want you to read what Muhammad Yunus, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. We all have heard of him in Agribusiness, Nobel Prize. And I hope one day to see one of us, a participant winning this. Read this. But when you're reading it, change people for smallholders. And you can see what he said is very applicable, not to just rubber, rice, and everything that Dr. Haryanto had highlighted earlier. Take your 30 seconds and have a read. Don't forget to replace people for smallholders. What would I like to take? What would I like you to take away from this is that poverty is not created by poor people or not created by smallholders. The problem is not created by smallholders. All the solutions that we've presented so far, even in the articles that I've shown you, is that smallholders need to produce better, smallholders need to manage this better, smallholder needs to do a lot of things better. But that's not where the solution is. I don't think it is. I think it's all about, and what Professor Song has said, between DVA and FVA, I loved it. I think the solution is to have a true connection to the global value chain. And that true means that trust between actors, acting responsibly across the chain, meaning no deforestation, working towards an equal goal, unified, and most importantly, that E, equitable. That is what is missing in today's global value chain in most of the crops. If you just look at the examples I've provided, like rubber and rice. And finally, I'd like to conclude my talk by giving two things, by saying, I've got my notes here to say what can be done. My presentation today here is one, not to provide a concrete solution, but to just just give you a shot for you to think, for academics to think. There are a lot of young researchers, academics out there. There's a Nobel Prize out there with your name on it. I want to see research moving towards that direction. I think government has done plenty. Government has done, there are rubber research institute across the world. There's Sri Lankan rubber research institute is more than 100 years. They've done a lot of R&D. There needs to be, we need to address the technology transfer, because at the moment, in years ago, it used to be Rubber Research Institute dealing with the farmers, but now we've got a lot of middle organizations, and I'm quite sure this is very familiar throughout Southeast Asia. I was a farmer, and I wanted to deal with the technology producer, the one that created the technology, but I got it from someone who did not build that technology, and there was always miscommunication. I think that's something that we should look at. And most importantly, private sectors, you've got to step up. Private sectors have got to step up and have got to make a change. And how do we solve this problem? I don't think any of us can solve this problem. It's like solving a problem of middlemen. Smallholders are fragmented. Smallholders are like puzzles. If you can think of puzzles, they're fragmented everywhere. A possible solution, an extreme solution, would be to tell all the smallholders, stop growing rubber for 10 days and see how they quiver, and ask them to pay for the right price. Of course, we can't do that. But what we can possibly do is probably get smallholders together. There's a lot of examples of cooperatives. I know there's a lot of work done in cooperatives in coffee. There's some great examples of cooperatives in India, some poor examples of cooperatives in Malaysia. There needs to be a lot more work there. And there needs to be value addition. If you look at Indonesia, for example, how many glove companies are there in Indonesia? How many glove companies are there in Malaysia? Malaysia stepped out of rubber. Indonesia's got a lot of rubber. Let's move towards that direction. Let's get farmers involved. Let's do what Muhammad Yunus did. Let's get them to own part of the, part of the chain. Give them that sense of, empower them, and give them that sense of ownership. And finally, there's 10 species of rubber. Only one has ever been commercially exploited, Hevia brasiliensis. There's 9 others that we haven't looked at. There's more research. I think there's a bright future. There's a very, very bright future, although, a lot of my story was doom and gloom. But I think there's a very, very, very bright future. But we need government, particularly small, private institutions to step up and start shining the light on this industry. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wow, what a drama. Yeah. So Dr. Amar has conveyed his drama with one keyword. It is a widening gap or widening divide on the benefit of value created in the value chain. So the equitability is yet still the problem in the value chains of agribusiness. Again, it is surprising that all three speakers are actually talking the same theme, coming to the same more or less conclusions that the solutions of agribusiness value chains is not only light on commercial aspect, the private aspect, but also on political economy. So it is the will of government, of political decision maker, to make equitable decision, to make agribusiness is really a place in which all actors can enjoy the benefit they created. So I restrain to convey the conclusion of three speakers because I want to come to the Q&A question. My problem is that according to the schedule, our time is only left more or less 10 minutes. So I need to ask the committee what time the additional time will be given for the session of question and answer. So it's represent Ibu Etria. Can you give me exact time what minutes we have still?
Yes,
Bapak Soeharno, you may invite audience to address questions for another 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay then. So audience, so ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for you to maybe have more insights or even clarify or maybe object the proposed statement given by the speakers. So I invite of you to at least two of you to ask the question or to make a remark on that, on what has been presented by the speakers. Please. I didn't see in the chat room such question. So once again, dear participants, dear audience, please, if you have questions to be clarified or to be answered, no, once again, is there any question? Just a reminder, three speakers have used three development approach, three explanation approach on explaining the relationship between agribusiness and the development, or more specific issues on recovery. Yeah, but if you observe in detail, and the recommendation is more or less the same. Yeah, digitalization, localization, diversification, and then the last of Dr. Amar, inclusivity, in which farmers, small farmers, is not only engaged in passive way, but in a very supporting and active way in decision making along the for the value chain. Yeah, so I think that is very interesting. Again, if we follow what Dr. Amar have said, maybe that is the truth, because three of the speakers is coming to the same conclusion actually and the same recommendation. Please, once again, it's time for you to ask. Maybe.
Excuse me, Pak Harno. There is a remark and question in the chat box.
Oh,
Could you please address this question?
Wait a minute. Yeah. Okay.
Ask question.
Yeah. I come to sorry. Oh, many. Yeah. Sorry. It's my. Okay. This is coming from for Pamela. Yeah, I agree, sir. The key to recovery, to economic recovery, is supply chain on agribusiness system. It is not about the role of private sector, but the role of public sectors. Who is going to? Can you give your comments on Pak Haryanto? I agree in the key to recovery economic is supply chain on agribusiness system. It is not about the role of private sector, but the role of public sector.
Oh, bilang ke Pak Harno.
Okay, thank you, Pak Harno.
Raise his hand.
The key is how to mix the role of government is not too much in the market. Yeah, in the market, the government need to as a facilitator. Yeah, how government to improve the business environment. Yeah. So if like in the rice market, yeah, where the government intervene, yeah, a lot of intervention, and in a long time, yeah, usually market become inefficient. Yeah. So I think it's time when in this condition, yeah, we need to support increasing the private sector role in increasing not just efficiency in the value chains of agribusiness, but also how to distribute the benefits equally. Because the problem in agribusiness in Indonesia is not in the level of producer corporation, but in the marketing chains. Yeah. If you look at in the data of margin of shallot or margin of rice, or also margin in the rubber, yeah, lot of inefficiency between the farmers and the firm or corporation. That's one. So how we can improve, yeah, makes the local collector, yeah, become more efficient. That's why I introduce the entities more stronger nationally or from overseas, yeah, to make the impact, yeah, to better efficiency in marketing, yeah, marketing between the farmer and the producer,
yes,
yeah, processor, manufacturer. That's, I think, Pak Arno.
Yes, thank you very much. just a small reminder that what is advocated by Davis in 1955 to 1958, yeah, it is interesting because at one side he proposed the role of privates, but with political economics emphasis. Yeah, so it's not true that the equitable distribution of income along the chains is laid on private self. Pak Haryanto said it is efficiency, but also equity, which is coming from political movement. So it is the theme that is proposed by Goldberg and Davis again more than 50 years ago. So the theme is the same. The suggestion actually the same. Yeah. So Pamela, I think it is my remark also just on that case. Is there any question for Professor Lim, or maybe Professor Lim, have your comment on the question? Please.
Well, I don't have any specific reply to the question, but obviously this is a very important issue, how public sectors and private sectors are going together. But if I extend this question a little bit into the international agribusiness,
yeah.
Our speakers already mentioned this one. Not only commercial interest, we are more aligned with more sustainability, how we can reform, restructure this supply chain or global chain from the angle of sustainability or fair distribution or things like that. Is what what we heard from this shares, the equitable shares of those commercial profits among all participants, not only the multinational corporations, but also smallholders.
Yeah.
But the key point is the participation into the global value chain definitely provide certain benefit to those smallholders. So public sectors by policy or institutional arrangement or scholars or specialists, how they can link these smallholders, even though they're smallest, how they can be part of this global value chain, how they can share those profits or the fruits of internationalization. Okay? Even though they are smallholders, that is a policy question, and how we can help those small sectors can be players in the international market. The rubber industry, coffee industry, or palm tree, I think this is a very common task to all smallholder farmers.
Thank you very much. Dr. Amar, will you add some words on that issue, please? I'm not hearing from.
I think the other keynote speakers have summarized it pretty well. But what's interesting as well is that these leaves a lot of research questions for future academics to look at, like, participations. And I'm sure there's a lot of work already looking at, PPP and how it helps with rice. And I'd be interested, this is something that would be of very much interest to me. I mean, who carries the burden? And I think there's arguments for and against both those arguments as well. But if we look at, like, for example, fertilizers, if we look at the US, it's the trend has always been changing, that the shift of investment is towards the private sector rather than the public sector. I don't know if that's something that's going to pick up here, but something that we'll have to watch.
Yeah, thank you very much. So with the last word of Dr. Amar, we are forced to end our session today because it's already what has been scheduled. So
Professor Maman would like to address a question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. We have still time. Yeah.
5 minutes, please.
You might address directly, Professor Maman. So please.
Yeah. I suppose the weaknesses of our agribusiness in Indonesia, because of weaknesses of the agricultural structure. Agricultural structure in Indonesia was very weak. The land was so small, the capital, the farmers themselves are lack of technology. So structurally, the weaknesses of our agribusiness and the weaknesses of farmer position, because of many things related to the weaknesses of agricultural structure. But from all of the speakers didn't mention about how about the role of cooperative, farmer cooperative, because cooperative is the institution which might bridge the gap between producer and it will arrange a better organized market organization in marketing, in selling farm products. So what was that is my comment. Why there are no any I mean, there's no any mention about the role of cooperative in for the small farmer. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think Dr. Amar and also Professor Lim has mentioned about the role in stating about the institutional arrangement. But somehow I would like to invite once again Dr. Amar to give your comment on the Pak Maman Rikmat, Professor Maman Rikmat. Please, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Maman. I think I did mention, but just briefly, I think cooperatives plays an important role. And I think the example that I gave was cooperatives in India. They've got thousands of cooperatives and managed very successfully. And one of the things that I think that is important in terms of cooperatives, from the small research that we've done, was when we looked at cooperatives in Malaysia, was management of cooperatives. I think that's the key issue in terms of who do you get to manage these cooperatives. You have successful ones, you have unsuccessful ones. Maybe we can learn from that. But I completely agree with you, Pak Maman, that cooperatives has an important role to play here in terms of linking this the smallholder farmers with the global value chain.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, thank you, Pak Maman.
Thank you, Pak Maman.
Yes, yeah. Prof. Lim, do you have some to say? Okay, and then I see also one question left coming from Ibu Triana, I think. It is mentioned, I have a question. Dr. Haryanto's presentation states about global value chain. In my opinion, some commodities at global value chain will get negative impact by pandemic. What kind of factor determining the spread of recovery, the speed of recovery? So it is directed to Pak Haryanto, yeah?
Okay, thank you, Pak Harno. Yeah, I think what already mentioned by Professor Lim and Dr. Amar, that the problem with the COVID actually usually centered on the city. And the problem for commodity in Indonesia in demand side, yeah, not in the supply side, not in the production side. That's why compare with before COVID, we know that the production of many agricultural products is not distributed. So actually, the problem lay in the supply, and because there is no problem also in Indonesia in terms of transportation. So I think for food product, yeah, the impact of COVID relatively minimal. I think that's you can look at the price in consumer level. Yeah, it's also stabilized. I think that Parno maybe is not answering what Triana mentioned, but what I think is that how to improve, yeah, the marketing channel in a lot of commodities in Indonesia, where the collector have much more benefit, yeah, than the producer or the farmers. What mentioned by the Professor Maman is, I think, very relevant. But usually the problem cooperative in Indonesia, usually difficulties associated with cohesion among members.
Yeah.
There are likely how the benefit derived from the cooperative institution, how to spread equally between the members. And also for cooperative Indonesia, usually how we can increase the human resources, usually because if we work in co-op, usually we got paid relatively lower when compared to works in the other private sector. That's maybe one of the problem. Thank you, Baron.
Yes, thank you very much. And there is one left question again coming from Ibu Elsia. I'm Elsia Paulin from University of Samratulangi. Mr. Haryanto, you suggested that it is best to create agribusiness at the local level to achieve fairly or justice. And the government of Indonesia has never done this before. Can this webinar propose and realize this program through the Ministry of Agriculture by embracing university? Okay, just representing the committee, we will of course document it what the recommendations, yeah. But to make a, let's say, a policy brief on that, we might be used. I mean, the committee will use it, but it left on what the how the government responded. But for sure, we will publish it, and as a scientific work, then it should be also considered to be recommendation, yeah, applicative recommendations. So I think with this word, I would like to end up our sessions because of time, because of the schedule. And just before closing, I would like convey our high appreciations for Dr. Lim, for Professor Lim, for Dr. Haryanto, for Dr. Amar, for your insightful presentations. Some are bringing a new facts with what Dr. Amar said, be a wake call for us. Thank you very much for your presentations. And by this, I would like to end the session. Thank you very much for the audience, and thank you very much for the committee. I give back the room to the MC, Ibu Adria.
We thank Dr. Suharno for chairing the plenary session. We express our gratitude to Professor Song Sulim, Dr. Haryanto, Dr. Ammar Abdul Aziz, and Dr. Suharno for a thoughtful session. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to present little mementos to our speakers. We extend the certificate to Professor Song Sulim, and the vector picture. Next, we present the certificate to Dr. Haryanto.
Recording stopped.
And the vector picture. Next, we extend the certificate to Dr. Ammar Abdul Aziz and the vector picture. We also present the certificate to Dr. Suharno and the vector picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we proceed to the next agenda, the keynote speech, presented by Dr. Bayu Krishnamurthy. Please allow me to introduce the keynote speaker. Dr. Bayu Krishnamurthy is an associate professor in Department of Agribusiness, IPB University. He holds a position as chairman of Agribusiness Association of Indonesia. He is also president of RNI, Indonesia Food Holding State-Owned Company. May I invite Dr. Bayu Krishnamurthy to deliver the keynote speech.
Thank you very much, Ibu Adria. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, still morning, 10 minutes before noon. Thank you very much for the invitation, and also thank you for the organizers of becoming flexible with the schedule. Apologize that I cannot make it in the morning, so the organizer arranged that I still could participate and give the speech later on the session. I enjoying the discussion, Pak Haryanto, Professor Lim, Dr. Amar, and all the Q&A. Yes, let me share with you some thoughts related to COVID and agribusiness. This has come from first-hand experience with my involvement in supervising the Trubus Bina Swadaya Group, as well as the Raja Wali Nusantara Indonesia company, who all are the agribusiness, have agribusiness activities. First, on COVID. Yes, it's true that COVID gives us a problem with, especially in terms of health issues, with the disease itself. But within the business perspective, that is only the first phase of the impact of COVID to agribusiness. The second phase, of course, is the government response, the lockdown. Governments through
recording in progress.
Because of the concern on the COVID is stopping almost all of the economic activity, especially in the supply chains, in the manufacturing, in all the production. I agree with Dr. Haryanto that COVID at the beginning is urban issues, more than urban issues, or at least even though it's some kind of semi-urban issues, but related with industrial sector. Related with this second phase is also how demand side has been affected, how households been worrisome with COVID, so they restrain themselves, not doing their normal economic activities. Then, of course, the first phase and the second phase of COVID have an impact to agribusiness. But I think the much more severe impact come with the third phase of COVID, which is the disturbance of supply chains. The disturbance of supply chains, or within the agribusiness activities, we call it the system of the agribusiness, is actually by twofold. First, it's because the recovery, the time of recovery from one activities to one activities, from region to region, from country to country, is not uniform. It's not in a similar way. China and United States, for example, already declared themselves that they are already back to the kind of normal economic activities. But still within the ASEAN, for example, the Philippines and even now Singapore, they come to another lockdown because of the increase of the case of COVID. What happened was in this third phase is some area, some regions, some economics, they already increased their demand, but other is not yet come through. On that note, we can also witness that within the first phase, actually almost all country, almost all economics stop. Almost all economic activities just freeze because of the lockdown and everything. But in the third phase, there is different time perspective within of the activities. That is what happened with a supply chains problem, big supply chains problem that now faced by United States. Container cannot go through to the harbor. Already hundreds, even thousands of trucks been stuck in many roads, and product that cannot be delivered to the consumers, to the retailers. This is one dimension that we need to see more clearly in related to how agribusiness could help to recover. The second point is about the farm activities. Yes, I think I've already seen in Dr. Amar and Dr. Haryanto presentation that the farming activities have a kind of rigidity, agility. So when the COVID emerged, these activities is not so much impacted by COVID. This is also related with a point previously that said that COVID is more urban biased rather than rural. Yes, it's true the farm activities is not so much impacted by COVID in the first phase. But I have to mention that in at least some cases in Indonesia, when we see in 2020, it started from the city and spread across the countries. But late 2020 and early 2021, there are cases that the spread of the virus and the disease come from the rural area. It's because one or two member of the society from the urban side, they go back and see their family in the rural and make it, because eventually we could see that in the rural area the health protocol is not as stringent as in urban. So when somebody maybe without their knowledge come to the rural area and bring the virus, and then suddenly some villages, 1, 2, 3, like in Kudus, for example, and in Tangerang, there are outbreak in the rural area. But yet again, we probably could say that the farm activities, the on-farm activities, is not as much as impacted than in the urban economic activities. But probably the bigger problem for agribusiness is on the demand side. If we look at the national data, we can say in the last years, last 2 semesters, the vehicle market, automotive market, motorcycle market is down by about 35%. Electronic is down by about 10%. Leisure and transportation certainly down almost 80%. But food and necessity throughout the COVID period, throughout the pandemic time, is still grow. Take a note on the growth about 4 to 5%, equal in every region. But it's not only about the quantitative; it's also about the qualitative. What kind of product and how the consumers spend their money. So we witnessing they are changing in consumer behavior, and I think it's more and more study show this changing is significant by quality of the product, by delivery mechanism, by payment system. And almost all now, more and more, becoming digital. So, and I think we haven't seen the end of it. The consumer's behavior change is still evolving, and the consumers still try to find an equilibrium of their how they behave on combining the digital activities and the digital or the virtual activities and the real one. And we will see, my hypothesis, my observation, we will see that will stay. This will be becoming a kind of more permanent rather than temporary. This behavior bring consequences to the business. Many agribusinesses now try to adapt with this new market situation. They try to develop, almost all of the agribusiness companies develop their digital site, their digital feature. And it's also related with logistics, it's related with transactions, promotion, marketing, even again payment. So when COVID, the first time, the first phase of COVID come around us and bring us problem and give us the pandemic, the farm activities, the on-farm activities have their kind of agility and rigidity. So that's why the growth of the agriculture sector seems like it's not, it's not impacted by COVID. But when the second phase and the third phase of COVID come around, the biggest challenge is the same agility and rigidity. Our farmers is also very difficult to adapt and adjust with the new dimensions in the demand side. The digitalizations, the non-cash payment system, and so forth. And this, if we do not, we're not doing anything, or we complacent and say agriculture is a kind of immune to the COVID, we will be in trouble. Our farmers will be in trouble because the changing is in demand side. The consumer behavior, the changing in the consumer behavior will be give them a direct impact, a derivative demand directly to the farmers. If the farmers could not cope with this changing in the consumer activities, then they will lose the market. So my point is, if we would like to see agribusiness becoming part of the recovery of the economics, of course, agribusiness in Indonesia have a big contribution. We have in terms of contribution in GDP, in employment, in value-added, agribusiness is a significant and strategic sector. But we have to make sure that they are also be able to adjust with the new with the new setup of structures and behavior that have been pushed by the COVID. I have another point, probably 2 points that I would like to add on this discussion. The first, we have to also to monitor very carefully, not only about the COVID, the impact of the COVID, but also the impact of the climate change. The drought that happening in 2019 in Australia, for example, probably Dr. Amar could tell us more about this, still have an impact until now, 2 years after it happened. We still see the beef market has been disrupted because of that activities, because of that situation. The wildfire and bushfire in California or in Europe is also give an impact in many products of agribusiness. The trade war between China and the United States, even though it's still it's the kind of caricatural because it's more on the politics rather than on economics, but still it's heavily related with how the government with these two gigantic economies respond to any other issues, and we need to be monitoring carefully so we could anticipate and look on the impact of to the agribusiness. Last but not least, of course, it's nice to say that we need to be localized. We go local in terms of agribusiness. It's very nice and still kind of romantic if we look at every one of us to see how we fulfill the local market. But that is not creating spaces. Local market or regional market is limited, right? And we need to have also a bigger perspective within the national and even international to gain benefit, to gain growth, to gain more trade and commercial activities. So within this point, I would like to conclude that probably Indonesian agribusiness need to speak up more, need to send message clearer and louder that we are also, the agribusiness sector is also a victim of the pandemic and the recession related to it. We should not be complacent and say it's okay, the agriculture sector is immune to the COVID. We see now public resources has been allocated, and if we look at how they allocate that resources, we see that it's not much of supporting what they call it as the champion sectors in the COVID situation. We still have to say that agribusiness needs support. We need to have our fair share of that public resource allocation, because yes, we contribute to the economy during the COVID. So it's not because of we are becoming, kind of champion, then the public resources should go to other sectors. And last but not least, I think we need also to make sure that trade and commerce is still the best way to develop, the best way to gain welfare and benefit to farmers, including the smallholders and also the small enterprises. We need to make sure that the third phase of COVID, which is the supply chain disturbance, could be resolved as soon as possible, so the agribusiness would retain again its potential. Again, I thank you for the opportunity, and wish you a more productive seminar and workshop looking ahead in time of the future. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We thank Dr. Bayu Krishnamurthy for presenting the keynote speech. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to present little mementos to Dr. Bayu Krishnamurthy. We extend a certificate and a vector picture. Thank you very much for the valuable thoughts. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we reach to the end of the morning session. Before we close this morning session, I invite you to turn on your camera. We will take the pictures of all participants. Please turn on your camera. We invite you to open your camera. We have several slides here. Thank you for turning your camera. We have several slides here. So we begin with the first slide. 3, 2, 1. We move to the next slide. 3, 2, 1. Next. slide, please. Open your camera. 3, 2, 1. We move to the next slide. Please turn on your camera. 3, 2, 1. Next slide. 3, 2, 1. Next slide. 3, 2, 1. Next slide. Okay, so we have recorded your pictures. For participants who will present in the parallel sessions, please join at Zoom at 12:40. I thank you for your participation in the morning session. We look forward to having you in the afternoon session. We close this session. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Kampus terbaik, inspirasi, tebarkan harapan. Kampus terbaik, inovasi, wujudkan impian. Kampus terbaik, integritas, kuatkan tujuan. Kampus terbaik, beri terbaik untuk negeri, untuk dunia, umat manusia dan alam semesta. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah.
Recording stopped.
Oh, majulah. Kampus terbaik, inspirasi, tebarkan harapan. Kampus terbaik, inovasi, wujudkan impian. Kampus terbaik, integritas, kuatkan tujuan. Kampus terbaik, beri terbaik untuk negeri, untuk dunia, umat manusia dan alam semesta. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar selalu terdepan, berbekal ilmu dan jiwa pengabdian. Deras arus zaman takkan tertahan, majulah melangkah, oh majulah. Terus berpacu dalam keunggulan, lincah pembelajar untuk kehidupan. hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah